Hey guys, welcome back to the Unmasking Shame series. Today's the final video, so it is video number 8, and we are going to be talking about the mask of aggression. This one's a fascinating one actually, because there's kind of two elements to it. There's the passive aggressiveness and there's the aggressiveness and kind of the undertones of aggression that we want to really unpack today. So I'm looking forward to talking about this with you guys. So first off, I want to just explore a little bit about what the mask, the purpose of the mask is and why we use the mask of aggression. Oftentimes it's the underlying, what's underneath the mask is going to be obviously shame, but it's going to be flavors of inferiority, powerlessness, and feeling unaccepted, or that we don't belong. So we immediately use this mask to compensate for those feelings, and we project to the world that we feel confident in ourselves with an overcompensation. So we use aggression to really drive home that I'm confident in myself, and we flaunt our sexuality, and we throw these extreme stereotypes of being gay in people's faces to really kind of show people that we accept ourselves. But what we need to understand is there's a difference in acceptance of the mind and acceptance of the heart. And typically when we accept ourselves in the mind, it's just the voices, the stories, the memories, all these things that we use to try and convince ourselves and others that we have acceptance of ourselves. It's really a mechanism built by the ego to convince the false self, which is the ego, that we accept ourselves, and that tries to convince our authentic self that we accept ourselves, but it doesn't work, because the authentic self is actually created in the heart, the false self is created in the ego, in the mind. So there's this discrepancy, right, between these two. So the work that I do with people is really teaching them how to start to move from head into heart, so we can start to get into this energy of acceptance and love for ourselves, so we can start to move away from these masks, heal our shame, and start to live the life that we want to live. There's a great book by, I think his name is Robert Downs. He writes the Velvet Rage. It's a great book. It was one of the books that I read that kind of got me started into this, really reflecting in myself, my own shame wounds and stuff. So it was really, really neat to read that book. If you haven't read it, definitely pick it up. But he calls it the Velvet Rage because of this exact mask. Gay men have a lot of rage and a lot of anger inside, and it's masked by all the things we talk about. Humor can be a mask, bitchiness, all these things, passive aggressive, all that stuff. But when you start to poke and prod at the shame underneath the mask is really when some of the rage can come out. So his book really taught me about my own rage and my own anger issues, and how I use it to kind of displace the feeling of sadness or shame or whatever it is that I'm experiencing underlying the anger or the aggression. So just wanted to point that out. If you haven't read that book, definitely pick it up. It's a great read. So what ends up happening when we grow up gay, we're younger, we're having this experience of being different than everybody, right? And it's like, holy crap. And we start to realize that people don't accept us for something that we don't really have any control over, right? We're born gay, we come into this world, and then people start to reject us for something that we don't have control over. This is a very, very angering experience, and a very saddening experience for a lot of gay men. And this is where we start to kind of develop this mechanism of, everyone is against us, the world is against me. So what is one of the best ways when we feel like we're being attacked or we have to defend ourselves is the mask of aggression, right? It's going to really ward people off. It's going to keep people away. And it does just that, right? It keeps people away. And this is where people reach a point in their lives where they're like, I'm keeping people out that are actually wanting to be a part of my experience and teach me, joy and love and all the things that I want, but I don't know how to take my mask off. And this is a real predicament for a lot of people, right? So once we understand this, that the world isn't always against us, it can be for sure, but we don't need to use aggression when we feel that their people are against us. We can use love, we can use compassion, we can use empathy, right? People's ignorance sometimes isn't their fault. It's their responsibility to educate themselves for sure, but it's not their fault that they're ignorant if they've never been exposed to maybe someone like yourself or someone who's gay. So we don't need to necessarily always approach these people with aggression. So to understand the mask, maybe sometimes it's hard to see this in ourselves, but oftentimes the mask can be worn as like an I don't give a fuck, right? It's got this real undertone of arrogance. It's got this real undertone of superiority. But what do we know about ignorance? What do we know about superiority and aggression? And these things are masking inadequacy, shame, powerlessness, inferiority, right? These things are the things we need to start to sit with and work with, because that's what we're trying to get away from, that experience, right? So what is it like to sit in your powerlessness? What's it like to sit in feeling like you don't belong, right? That's the energy that you need to start to work with and sit with and rise out of, because otherwise we just continue to keep swapping out different masks for different masks to get through different environments and situations. So it's imperative to have the self-awareness on this journey, so you can start to peel these masks back and start to really step into your authenticity, right? So the shame underneath the mask is oftentimes going to say to us that we need to reject before we get rejected, right? This is a real big one, and one that I see in the gay community. I actually think that what we do is we feel that in greater society, and then we start to really integrate into a gay community to find refuge from what we think is the world being against us. We come into the gay community and we all have this mechanism that the world's against us, and we all fear rejection. So we reject before we get rejected. That's why there's so much nastiness in these online dating platforms, and just even I see it on Instagram, and people being bitchy and catty and all this sort of energy. So we need to understand that we're trying to reject before we get rejected. So what does that say about us? It says that we have this crazy intense desire and to belong, but it comes from this fear of feeling rejected, right? So again, the work we need to do in this journey is to belong to ourselves, and to accept ourselves and to love ourselves, because when you have acceptance and love and belonging for yourself, you don't have this crazy intense desire to seek it from other people, right? It's like when you can internally validate you don't need to constantly be seeking outside yourself for these things, because you start to learn how to cultivate them within, right? So one thing to be mindful of is the voice inside your head, right? The nasty voice inside your head is going to be your ego. It's going to be the mechanism that you've developed in your head that talks with nastiness, that's aggressive, because it's almost like it's our friend and it's protecting us. And you have your best friend and somebody starts attacking you, your best friend's going to come in and jump in and help you out. That's what this ego is doing, but it's coming at it from a place of fear and aggression. We want to learn how to cultivate that from love and respect, right, for ourselves and for others. So the ego is always going to try and convince you through conviction, right? And that is the mask of aggression, right? The ego trying to convince us that we have confidence and that we're worthy and that we're acceptable through conviction, right? So that's what we want to really understand. And then what we do is we perpetuate with this conviction, or this passive aggressiveness or aggressiveness, we perpetuate our fear and our experience of rejection, because when we are behind this mask of aggression, we're really putting out a real off-putting energy for people, right? And people don't want to be around that energy, including other gay people. So what does that do? It keeps them at bay, it puts their walls up, and then you're having this experience of coming up against other people's walls. You think it's about you because you're unacceptable or unlovable, and it perpetuates your cycle of loneliness and not feeling like you belong, right? So again, this just journey is about self-acceptance. Because when we learn to accept ourselves, we don't need to always be perceiving in our environment who's accepting us and who's not. Because if we have a filter of it's built from the fear of rejection, we're always going to be perceiving the people that don't accept us. We don't actually see the people that accept us, because that's not our fear. Our fear is not being accepted, right? So we're going to always be putting that through our filter. And then what do we get when we have the filter that's skewed that way? Is we bring that into our experience, right? So self-acceptance is the only way out of this and from behind this mask. And I want you to ask yourself this: how much of your aggression is from your lack of self-acceptance? How much of it is it directed towards you, right? When you think about it, we often use aggression because we think people don't accept us, but as soon as you accept yourself, that aggression just melts away because you're no longer triggered by the people in your environment that stimulate something in you that you don't have for yourself, right? So when somebody doesn't accept you and you don't accept yourself, that's very triggering because they're playing on your shame wound, right? Your lack of love and acceptance for yourself. But when you have acceptance and love for yourself and somebody doesn't accept you, right? It's like water off a duck's back. It doesn't mean nothing, you know? And that's such a beautiful place to be because your opinion of you is more important than somebody else's opinion of you. That's key, right? And I always say it's important, or other people's opinions of us is none of our business. Because really the only opinion that matters is your opinion of yourself, right? And that doesn't mean that we're not going to care about what other people think of us, because that's not our nature. Human beings care. It's ingrained in our social makeup and our biological makeup to care about what people think about us. So the key is to care more about what you know about yourself and less about what people think about you. Right? Because people aren't going to necessarily know your experience. Only you know your experience. So know what you know about yourself and stand in that truth. Because that is really how you liberate yourself from all of this fear-based stuff and move into a place of self-acceptance. Okay? I think those are the main points I wanted to make today about that. And, you know, just continue following some of the stuff that I'm putting out in this journey towards, you know, I call it unmasking shame. But really, it's a journey towards self-acceptance. That's really what this is. So call it what you want to call it. Some people like to frame things in the negative. Some people like to frame things in the positive. For me, I find that it's more relatable for people when they understand their shame, that they can say, okay, I want to unmask my shame. I want to move into a place of more confidence and self-acceptance for myself. But yeah, that's what this is about. So put the intention out there that this is something that you want more of in your life. You want more self-acceptance. You want more love for yourself. And it's such a beautiful place when you get to that place, because your relationships with people change when your relationship changes with yourself. You start to attract the type of people that are just so fitting and so beautiful for where you're at in your life. So keep honoring your truth and be who you are, regardless of what people think, regardless of people's reactions. Just be who you are and honor the beautiful energy within yourself. Sending you guys tons of love. Take care.